Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Same
Hi.
clothes. Yeah, we decided to keep continuity in filming, so it didn't change. 3 days of wearing the same clothes, very difficult. It's Friday. Um, all right. So here's the three things that I wrote down as you were like talking about ways to seek. Oh, but let me ask you this question. There's one more question. And this is a hard question.
Okay.
So, but you'll be okay. How specific do you think God's will is? Is it very specific? Or sometimes it's specific, or is it sort of general and gives we have latitude within? What do you think?
I think yes to all of
Yes, no, all
it.
okay, nice. Next
I
question.
think God has a general will for all of us, which is what I was kind of talking about in the message, that we would be
Sure.
in relationship with Him and walk with Him and all that stuff. And then I think God can have like varying degrees of specificness for someone. And I think it also depends on what time of your life you're in. Like sometimes it can get even more specific depending on like where you're at. And then sometimes it's a little more general. Like God's kind of like, trust you to figure this out for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think like for me, for example, my call to be a pastor, it was first and foremost just a call to preach. And I got it when I was like 10. I didn't know really what it meant. I just knew like God wanted me to be on a stage preaching to people. And that was as specific as he got at that time. And I just kind of dealt with that. I had that in the back of my mind as I got older. I kind of tried to figure it out more. And it wasn't until I was like in later high school that I was trying to figure out like what area of ministry specifically did God want me to go into. And I remember asking constantly, like, what is it? What specific thing? Like, am I a missionary? Am I a pastor? If I'm a pastor, am I a kid's pastor? Am I a senior pastor? Like, what are we doing here? And God just kind of being like, just what do you feel like is right? Like, what do you feel like you should be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I spent time figuring out what I was passionate about and what I cared about and where I just felt the most right. And it was student ministry. And God was like, then that's it. And that was as like specific as he got.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it came to, when I was applying for Salem Fields, there was two different jobs I was interviewing for. And that one I had to be like, okay, God, like seriously, like which one is the one? And we wrestled with that together, kind of a thing. And he made it clear it was Salem Field. So I think there's like certain degrees of specificness. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it depends on where you're at. And it can, like I said, it can change over time. It can adapt. It can be like what you never thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think if we're like waiting for God to just like hand deliver us like this is your job title
Mm-hmm.
forevermore, you're waiting for the wrong thing. Like you just have to keep walking in step with him, and over time he'll continue to reveal, okay, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And sometimes it's even small stuff of like, God, do you want me to talk to this person next to me on the plane? Yeah, you should. And then sometimes it's the bigger stuff of like, God, do you want me to move across the country in pursuit of this job? No, I want you to stay here. Like those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The question was worded so you can't really couldn't lose. You can say yes to any of those, I think. But for me, I just one of the things that I've been again pondering in the long list of things that I like to give a good think about along the way is trying to I've tried to create for me a hierarchy of God's messages through scripture. Like what's the grander message for humans, right? And then what's the message for humans who are in relationship with you? And what's then the message for the group of people that I'm surrounded by that are humans who are now in relationship with you? And what is it that what I'm saying? Like I try to keep drilling down and like I found myself again, this is for me, and this might be a topic of contention depending, and you're welcome to disagree. Most people disagree with me at some point. But for me, I find that I haven't really discovered a lot of terrible specificity for myself. Most of it has been here's what I want for the world. Here's what I want for the community. And I want you to be a part of that. Now, as you are doing that, if you're in tune with me, I'm speaking for God here, but this is the conversations that we had. As you're doing and as you're continuing to do things, I want you to be open to stopping and turning or pivoting or be open to those things, But if I'm not stopping you or pivoting, then you have this field within which to play, as it were. Go forth and build the kingdom, make disciples. How you go about those things, if it needs to be more specific, then I'll stop you along the way. The reason I'm not saying it's different than what you are saying, but the reason why I've had to I've done this in my life is because I had gotten to a point of not moving until I had specificity, right? And I used it as a really good way of not doing things. And I've known a lot of people that do the same thing. They're like, I'm waiting on God to tell me, what to do. And again, I preached on this a couple years back at Salem Fields. One of the times I stopped by, it's like, you know, everybody's praying for this. They think it's like the double yellow line in the middle of the highway. That's God's will. I want you to walk straight in this will. Whereas God's like, actually, I want you to stay within the guardrails.
Yeah.
Just go that way. You know, I recently watched the adaptation of The Long Walk by Stephen King. And it's okay. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but it is interesting because like they start off all clumped together right in the middle of the road, and then they start to slowly spread out and sort of like matriculate. As long as they're moving forward, it's okay. They don't have to be necessarily right in a line or right next to each other, but as long as they're moving forward. And for me, Julia, that's sort of like what I did to fight back against my tendency to procrastinate when it comes to doing what God kind of wants me to do. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I've recognized it in other people also. Um, does that sound crazy to you? Or is it, I
No,
mean,
I think that's like, I think you put it into better words than I did. Like, I think that's exactly what I think it is. I think sometimes like he'll be more specific, and then sometimes it's like, this is your range to stay within.
mhm. Yeah, it's like God called you to preach, and it's like you can do that anywhere, anytime. And then if God says, however, right now, I'd like you to go into the student ministry at Salem Fields Community Church in Fredericksburg.
Hmm.
That's where I want you'll carry this out. But there's plenty of other places to keep doing it. But specifically, I'd like you to be here. And then
Yeah.
it's fun to investigate. Well, why here?
Yeah.
Like because I don't know how many times I can tell you, you and I share an office. So I was in that office before you were. And I've sat in that chair many times wondering, like, why am I here? What am I doing? Why here? Why now? What's the thing? And it's like that it was more of a cry of desperation at the time, but it ended up being a real blessing because God actually answered back a couple of times. Well, I'll tell you why. And that answer came when somebody would poke their head in the door and say, "Hey man, you got 5 minutes?"
Yeah.
And then you realize all of a sudden you're like, okay, had I not been here, not to say nobody else could help them, but they just happen to be the type of personality that I can speak into with
Yeah.
my life experience. You know what I mean? And so like that's the thing. I'm so glad that you tackled the message this way because you know again it's like if you focus on knowing God and Him knowing you, the things of God will begin to work their way. They become more natural to you. The ebb and flow. It's interesting, like when you said in the last segment that students were like, well, I pray, but I don't hear God's voice. And I find it interesting. I'll bet they have. They
Yeah.
just aren't used to
So have it.
recognizing it, you know? And I find that interesting. It's just like if you if you're I mean, again, if we pursued God like they pursue boys and girls at that age, right? Like if we all did, then can you imagine how incredible our relationship would be, you
They
know?
would be such a miraculous youth group.
It'd be the great. I mean, I've said that to myself a million times. Like, well, I didn't do it either, so I can't throw stones at them. But um, I don't. I'm sure it wouldn't take. Like you said something about like if your mom calls, you recognize her voice. I'm pretty sure that no matter what the situation, if Joey were to call you, you'd recognize his voice nearly instantly.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting, like you talked about like being in the bad mood and him bringing your favorite candy, and you're like, oh, he knows me and he loves me. Look, that was preservation. That's self-preservation. I'm sure he loves you. I'm sure he knows you, but like when you got a grumpy woman on your hands, you're like, look, it's I swear it's like sticking a meat into like a lion's den. Like, here, eat this first, and then I'll come in
Yeah.
after. Okay, satiate yourself on the sweet goodness. Um, but I think it's that knowing
Hmm.
that has been built up over time. I mean, that's irreplaceable in a
Yeah.
way, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's the thing. So, um, when you talked about Moses, like I don't, I mean, I don't know how much time you want to spend on it. We don't have a lot of time, but it's a great story. It's a good reading story. Moses, again, is one of the characters that it's funny you brought up he's a murderer. Like I hate that. Everybody's like, oh, Moses was a murderer. Okay, whatever. And you didn't do anything wrong. Don't get me wrong, but
Oh,
it's like
no.
the point you were making. I just have like a this. It's just the when people like they're always trying to justify Moses was a murderer, blah blah blah, wasn't this, blah blah blah, wasn't that. It's like okay, fine, man. I mean, we get it. Everybody's flawed, fine. But they act like they're reinventing the wheel every time they say that. Drives me crazy. Just like when the pastor's like, "Oh, there's 4 words for love in Greek." Ooh, wow, impress me.
That's why I tried to make it kind of quick. I was like, you made a
Yeah,
mistake, you murdered
you,
someone.
you did the best. That was the best ever. Because it's like moving on. You know what I'm saying? But what I think about Moses is he's a fully rounded character.
Hmm.
You know, we have enough material that his and the entirety of his character is essentially laid bare. And it's hard not to find similarities to him
Oh yeah.
from I don't know that I'm good enough for this to I'm way too good for these people to I don't deserve this to find somebody else to
Yeah.
like the whole thing and then to are you serious? You're not going to let me walk in there? Like one mistake, and it's like, it's funny, but it's just such a well fleshed out character that God gives us, which if we just read it without trying to like think of it as a chore, like I love the way that you said, like, if you read this, there's some pretty exciting stories. I mean, if we took the names out and replaced them with more common names, they'd be a bestseller.
Yeah.
So if we change, there's a dog hair on my microphone. It's driving me crazy. Stupid dog. Oh, there he is, just laying there, just blowing hair all over the room. I can't love him and I hate him at the same time. That must be how God looks at us. I love you guys, but man, I want to hate you sometimes. But I do agree that Moses provides like such a great example of somebody who's like, okay, I'm sometimes I feel like Moses is like, well, what else can I do? He's almost like the disciples when everybody leaves Jesus, and he's like, how come you guys aren't leaving? Like, where else are we going to
Where else
go?
would I go? Yeah.
I mean, we're in it with you, man. We're at this point we're branded,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of sweet when you think about it. I mean, and I think Moses got that way a couple of times too. But you know, the couple things that you said, and I want to leave the closing remarks all to you on this, is that you talked about studying and seeking, and I feel like Moses spent as much time walking as with God as God would allow.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Oh
I
yeah.
don't I don't see many opportunities that Moses missed
Yeah.
to not walk with God. Now, did he fumble along the way? Sure, but whenever an opportunity arose to be with God, he was there.
Yeah.
And that obviously impacted his entire life's journey and knowing and being a part of the will of God because he's checking in with God as often as he can. And then God's like, go, I got you. I'm with you. And you kept saying that, like, I'm with you. I'm with
Hmm.
you. I mean, of course, God did that to a lot of people, you know? Then you said about walking in obedience and to the best of his ability for the vast majority of the life that we have recorded, he did that. He walked obediently. Sometimes frustrated, sometimes downcast, sometimes happy, sometimes, the whole range of emotions, but he still kept walking.
Yep.
I mean, imagine we always talk about how dumb it is for the Israelites to take so long to cross a relatively small tract of land. But imagine Moses knowing that they're going in circles essentially
Yeah. And
and
just letting it
and
happen.
can't do anything about it. And just like Here we go again. Yep, let's circle back, guys. Yeah, you want to go left? Okay, left it is.
Yeah.
Great, let's do it. Um, and then you talked about joining what God is doing, and this I feel like Moses was a perfect example of somebody who was sometimes not that super stoked about it, but overall really thankful to be a part of what God was doing and was on for the ride. He was down for it.
Yeah.
And so I could not agree more. There's a lot of stories, a lot of people that, you could read, but if you really want to see a full human being through the entire range of emotions, through somebody who's desperately clinging to the will of God and saying, I'm in this, it's Moses.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. So I said what I said. Now say whatever you want to say, and we'll just be done.
I mean, I have always loved Moses' story. It's between Moses and Peter. Those are like my top two of like the characters in the Bible that I relate to the most.
Mm.
Um, but Moses, his
How do you
whole
relate to Moses, though? Tell me.
oh, well, I was about to say his whole like especially when he starts his speech in Exodus 3 where he is like has all of these reasons of like why he
Yeah.
can't do this. He's like, "Please God, if you could choose literally anybody else,
Yeah.
would love that." Like I think that's a very relatable moment for anybody. Um and then just the ways that he doesn't always know what's going on, but he's still kind of going along for the ride anyway. Like he doesn't always know. He didn't know all like 10 plagues. Like God was like, "All right, now
Yeah.
you're gonna go do this and something's gonna happen." Like that's
Yeah.
kind of all he would tell
Okay.
Moses. And
So I
Moses was
carried this here
like, "Okay,
stick
cool."
into there. And
Yep.
now what?
And now it's blood. Whoa, that's crazy.
Oh,
And like he didn't know, like every time he was going to Pharaoh, he was like probably thinking, I have to imagine he was like, please can this be the last
this
time
has
that
got
I
to be the
have to
last
talk to
one.
this
Yeah, that's good.
guy? And and then he gets to the mountain just like God said he would, and like he sees God's grandness, and it's just this dude who's just kind of trying his best. Like he just seems like the everyday man, like you said.
Yeah.
Like he's everybody. He's at times frustrated, he's at times happy, sometimes he's rejoicing and he's having a good time. He fights with his siblings. Like it's just the most normal dude, but God's doing extraordinary things. And that's something that we really teach our students a lot is that God will take ordinary people and use them to do extraordinary things. And I love how Moses just has emotions throughout his whole story. I mean, I wrote a full paper on the temper tantrum that he throws in Numbers, where he's just like, I mean, he basically just sits down and says, like, I quit. I can't do
Yeah.
this. And he even says to God, like, am I like a mother, like nursing these children? There's too many children for me to nurse. Like, I can't do this. And just knowing, like, we've all felt that way too. Like there's all been moments where we're like, God, I can't do this. This is so frustrating. These people are so frustrating.
Yeah. Your people.
Um, and the way that God just continually shows up throughout his story. And like the biggest part is that Moses was just constantly trying to meet with God. I mean, as soon as the tabernacle was all finished and he was in there every day. Every morning,
Mm.
he was hanging out with God to start the day. And yeah, they had the priests and Aaron and all those people who did like their duties or whatever, but Moses was always there. And he was the one that always talked to God. He's the one that went up the mountain to talk to God. He saw God. Like he even asked for that. God wasn't like, "Here, Moses, let me show you my appearance." Moses was like, "God, like I want to know you even more deeply. Can I?" And God was like, "We'll make this work somehow without you
Hmm.
exploding on the spot." And just this desire to be in such a strong relationship with God, would that everybody could have that. We could all be like Moses. And I think
Mm.
that's like the whole purpose of his story. If you had such a strong desire to be in relationship with God and to walk with God and to know God, you too could do the kinds of things that Moses did. It's just that wanting to be with him. And I
Hmm.
don't think that Moses' story, like even from the start, starts with like a super strong connection with God. Like I think we really see it start to form after the burning bush. Like he was sort of raised Hebrew-ish in the middle, and then like he ends up marrying this daughter of a Midianite priest who even knows what their connection was with God. They're this kind of this weird off branch. And so like he knew of God and he knew about God, but he really starts to have that relationship and then he just clings to that with everything. And that is really what forms his story and what shapes his obedience is that he's clinging to God throughout all of it.
Mm, that'll preach. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not going to add anything to that because there's no reason to do that. Do you know what's coming up next week, perchance?
Yeah, James is preaching.
Oh,
I mean,
James.
it's Mother's Day, but he's back in his Unmute series on prayer. And so he's talking
Oh,
about
okay.
confession.
Oh, right on. Well, that'll be fun. That's always fun to talk about.
Yeah.
I do think it was interesting though when you talked about um yeah, I'm not gonna I just think everybody should probably read just read you don't have to read all five books of the Bible, but you can get a pretty good grasp of Moses just by reading through the Genesis saga
Yeah.
and just to see the ups and downs and all the pieces, that kind of how it all comes together. And if you can't find yourself in that guy's story, I don't know what story you're living. I just don't understand it. I mean, the first part of it, the birth part of it is pretty crazy, but once he's going through some living and well, hiding out, I mean, there's just a lot of it's a good story.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And a lot of people like, I think they get their stuff from watching the Ten Commandments movie or watching Prince of Egypt, like stuff like that. It's not good.
Prince of Egypt is super cool. It's not 100%
Go to
accurate,
the
but it's
source though.
super
Go to the
cool.
source. Yeah. Anyway, well, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for I really enjoyed this, and like I said, I have a little bit of a mission I want to enter into from this, and just let me hit you with this one thing. Last piece of advice for somebody who is wrestling with they truly want to discover God's will. Just a quick down and dirty, man. Not do this, but think this way or open yourself up to this. What would you say?
I would say don't try to do it by yourself.
Mm,
I think that's another thing that we fail or struggle at is that we're
mm,
just trying to figure it all out on our own. And even Moses, like at the start, he's by himself and he's like, I can't do this by myself. And then God brings in Aaron, who's there with him. And I mean, Aaron's not always the best, but he walks with Moses too and then helps him to see things and hear things and supports him. And so I think like if you are like, I'm gonna go sit down and read God's word and figure out his will for me somehow, some way, invite somebody else into that with you. And
mm,
not just like anybody, but someone who is also wanting to walk this path with you and wants to help you and guide you.
mm,
When I was like reading the Torah and everything and studying and like getting to know God, I was not doing that by myself. I was doing it with Joey. We were reading together and sharing insights together, and he would see things that I didn't see, and I would see things that he didn't see. And we were just praying with each other and encouraging each other. God did not create us to be solo running through life. If that was what he wanted, he never would have made Eve for Adam in the garden. Like he would have just left Adam by himself. But God wants us to be walking this journey with other people. And so I would say, like, if you're wrestling and if you're struggling, find other people that can be with you and study with you. Even if you're like, let's just read this book of the Bible together. And some of our students are doing a Bible plan on the Bible app together, and they just comment after they finish a chapter and share
mm,
what they got out of it. And they've loved it. That's
mm,
literally all it takes.
mm-hmm. Yeah, just start
Yeah.
and don't let yourself freeze. That's my advice is
Yeah.
don't let the wrestling stop you from doing things and moving forward in faith.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, God's able to talk to you while you're walking. You don't have to just be standing there waiting. I mean, he'll still talk to you as you're going because we do have some permanent marching orders that we've already been given. So our default needs to be, making disciples and expanding the
Yeah.
kingdom while we're waiting on more specific instruction if it's coming. Well, I appreciate you very much. I really do. Coming back in July, I hope to grab some coffee with you. Actually,
Nice.
I'd love to have coffee with, or not coffee since you're not drinking that, but something, a water, a sparkling water beverage or whatever. But you enjoy both. Actually, I'd love to take you guys out for lunch,
Yeah,
if at
I'm
all
sure he does
possible.
that.
That'd be fun. So I got to meet him that one time, and it was good to get to know him. He helped my parents move. So I was so thankful. Anyway, appreciate you. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to message us, message anybody. Just pick a name and put at Salem Fields after it. You'll probably end up getting somebody. If not, just keep going through all most common names available and you'll get it. But Julia is Julia Gulia at salemfields.com. I'm just kidding. Just Julia. It's a wedding singer. You got that joke, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Some people, like my dad, just heard that and he's like, "What, Julia? What?" That's a joke, Dad. It's just a joke. All right, see you later. Have a good night or have a good day. Sorry, it's nighttime for me.
Yeah.
I'm usually in bed by now, so my mind's all blasted. I can't think straight. Take care. I'll see you later. Thanks everybody for watching. Love you and appreciate you. Bye, lang.